Decentralized data ownership and historic preservation. Brittany Kaiser on DAOs, blockchain and innovation. In this episode, Dr. Jemma Green is joined for part 2 of the discussion with Brittany Kaiser, a pioneering lawyer and entrepreneur who's making waves in the world of data ownership and blockchain. Brittany shares her insights on the future of Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, or DAOs, which are digital entities that operate on blockchain technology, allowing for decentralized decision-making and community-driven governance. She also discusses her groundbreaking work on historic preservation, using blockchain technology to create new opportunities for the preservation of historic estates and landmarks. From her work on DAOs to her advocacy for data ownership, Brittany's a true innovator and thought leader in her field. Discover how Brittany is revolutionizing the way we think about data ownership and historic preservation. I'm your co-host Anthony Pearl, and whether you're an investor or a startup looking for insights, it's time to get unblocked.
I'd love to just chat with you about DAOs and what you're seeing in the market and how important you think that they're going to be in the kind of next era of crypto and AI.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've really been waiting to see this huge boom in DAO usage. I know we did have a little bit of that in the last bull run, specifically DAOs on Ethereum using Snapshot for governance and voting mechanisms. But I helped co-write the first DAO LLC law in Wyoming in 2018, where we really saw the future of DAOs as a very intelligent way to manage legal organizations, companies, nonprofit, governmental organizations. Of course, if you've ever read Balaji's The Network State, I think you have an idea of where that could possibly go. But we really started the DAO LLC because we saw the emergence of real DAO architecture for having autonomous organization run by people decentralized all over the world that have come together to create a business or some other sort of impactful organization managing assets together, where you have clear, transparent governance structures and voting mechanisms, which are a lot better, I would say, than the typical kind of like board or shareholder vote. Obviously, I'm on the board of 2 public companies, so I know how difficult and intense that can be and how not transparent it is. So using DAO architecture to actually run a true legal organization is where we all saw that going. But it's really only been this year, I think, that we've seen a huge resurgence of DAOs from maybe 3 years ago when they were exciting on Ethereum. Now they're very exciting on Solana. And they're getting much higher valuations, much more investment, much more engagement, much more notoriety, much more well-known people getting involved, and the numbers of people getting involved. I mean, it's insane. I think the guys at DAOs.fun who have basically created what I would call like an initial DAO offering platform where you can launch a DAO and you can have VIP allocations and then a whitelist for, a wider community or the general public in order to all be able to put in a little bit of Solana to launch the DAO. And then some people are able to stake and have governance tokens and participate in whatever that DAO is meant to do. It's absolutely incredible, the speed and the valuations. I mean, that's how AI16Z, which is the kind of DAO of the ELIZA OS framework, the largest agentic open source AI software in the world, #1 on GitHub. They launched on that 3 months ago and reached at the peak like $2.5 billion valuation for a DAO. I mean, multi-billion-dollar company in 3 months. That is some amazing stuff. And even just a couple of days ago, an AI fund launched on there and went up to 400 million in about 5 minutes. So it's pretty serious stuff that's going on. And for me, as someone that probably spent thousands of hours of my life writing a law to make DAOs real 7 years ago, it's amazing to see. I'm very, very excited and bullish about the future of DAOs and their use cases.
Amazing. And do you see a lot of institutional money coming in to invest in DAOs?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If they can get in an allocation, they are getting in loads of crypto VCs and hedge funds, and difficult for them. If they can get in, they will do it. Everyone begs for an allocation in each of these. It's nothing like I've ever seen before.
Amazing. What about M&A, like token mergers and things like that? There's been a few that have happened with DAOs voting to merge tokens. Do you have a view of how big, like, kind of M&A market is going to be in blockchain?
Oh, huge. Absolutely huge. I think one of the interesting and more difficult things in the crypto industry is, if everything has its own token and a different architecture on a different L1 or L2, like it's a technical question just as much as it is a legal and regulatory question when you do M&A, because you have huge communities and so many token holders and so many projects that have built on your technology. How do you get bought by a bigger technology and actually integrate and merge those communities? So I think there's going to be a lot more of that in this cycle now that there's so much institutional money and focus in this industry. So, the devs are going to have to keep up, and they're the most expensive devs in the world. If someone wants to do true M&A with two different technologies and different sets of tokens, you just have to have the money to pay all of the devs to figure it out, how to bridge it, and all the community managers to encourage people that it's a good thing and get them to adopt whatever is happening next.
What's the most interesting one that you've seen talked about or actually happened so far?
The most interesting one of DAOs?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, obviously AI 16Z is the new gold standard of what you would want to be able to do, but it's going to be hard for someone to replicate a product like Eliza OS, right? And so now we're seeing a lot more that are launching that are taking very, very niche standpoints. I'm helping co-launch one that is specifically to use AI agents to create a buy side, sell side of everything you need for compute, from hardware to software to power contracts, that I can negotiate all of that for you. So no matter what you need in the space on the buy or sell side, that it can actually arrange that for you. I know that you usually pay humans who do this hundreds of thousands a year. So to be able to replace some of those negotiations with AI agents is huge. I'm also launching one for my company, Satoshi, which is my private members club for the preservation of historic estate that I'm the founder and CEO of. Been working on and off for 7 years and more full-time for 3 years, but we kind of gone into a very big niche of the real world asset space, which is creating alternative financing and commercialization opportunities for historic estates. So landmarks, monuments, castles, palaces. In a lot of countries, you cannot get a mortgage or a loan from a bank on these estates, which should blow anyone's mind that is in real estate. That historic estate owners of buildings that have been there for 500 to 1,000 years can't get a mortgage. So we do alternative lending, both traditional and blockchain based, in order to create a treasury for these estates and keep up with the restoration, upkeep, and commercialization of these estates so they can become financially sustainable and still be there for our children and grandchildren. So we work with places of national historic importance in the UK, France, and Italy at the moment, and being able to launch a DAO for our community and a token where people can use that token in order to book out entire estates for themselves, company retreat, family vacation, wedding, birthday, whatever, or to just go and book rooms as they're traveling and spend their money at a historic estate instead of a random 4 or 5-star hotel, and then also be able to book tickets to everything from a black tie gala ball to, a masquerade to historic tours of these places is an amazing opportunity, really cool utility. And for me, I would just love anyone around the world that would love to be able to book out some of these places to participate. I mean, for me, the reason why I even thought of this is because I lived in Europe for half of my life, and I had so many friends that inherited ancestral homes that had been in their family for, 500 to 1,000 years, but they had a normal job. They were a professor or a journalist or something, and they could not afford the upkeep. And so for the first time in 1,000 years since the king built it for their 13 ex-great-grandfather, they had to sell their place because they couldn't get a mortgage, couldn't get lending, had no commercial opportunities. And so they had to let go of it, which to me is beyond depressing. And then the new person who has that has no emotional connection to it usually does inappropriate renovations, in my opinion, and a lot of the history is lost. So before I went into law, I was obsessed with archaeology. So for me, losing that history just because this is a financial problem where a whole multi-trillion-dollar sector of the real estate industry is not taken care of by the traditional finance system, that's a problem for crypto to fix. So that's what we're doing at Satoshi, and we'll be launching the Castle DAO very soon.
Amazing. And you've got a security token and a utility token, as well as people being able to invest in sort of a more traditional finance sense as well.
Exactly. So we're a French company based in Paris. We also have a Swiss company, and both of those allow people to invest in regular dividend-bearing shares or in crypto dividend-bearing security tokens. And then anyone around the world can buy a utility token. It's like buying travel points or what have you, because you're using those to book out all of the estates in our network, the castles and palaces owned by our friends or our partners.
Amazing. Congratulations. I mean, most people would know of you for your background in law and Cambridge Analytica, but from this part of our conversation, hearing about your interest in history and how I'm just sensing a real passion for you in this topic, Brittany.
So much passion. It's like what I wanted to do with my entire life. And then I went into archaeology and I very quickly realized that it was a lot of digging holes and begging other people for money. And the archaeologist I was working with said, your IQ is too high for this. You need to go get the money and bring it back to archaeology. They literally told me that I should not go to university for archaeology anymore, even though I had applied to major in it. So I went to college to major in international law and minored in archaeology, and have been waiting for the opportunity to bring the money back to the sector with what I had figured out in the rest of my career. So I'm finally there, which is for me very exciting.
Does it say how amazing is it that you've got this sort of contrast of this new technology with these really historic houses? It's kind of almost, you think they would be the last ones to be, jumping ahead with the technology, but it's so great to see that as being at the forefront of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing that it does actually fix the problem. And it's a problem that most people don't want to talk about, because a lot of aristocrats and royal families or people that have inherited these places, or people with a lot of money that recently bought one of these places and realize they have no idea what they're doing, they don't like to talk about the problem. So it's a big societal thing where people are not discussing this, and they are selling these places off market because they're even too embarrassed to put them on the market. But when we come up and we say, hey, we understand the problem, we'd love to help you keep this in your family and help you finance it. You just have to open it up to the public or to our friends in our private membership club who will come and stay there when you're not using it. Most of these people own multiple estates. Not all of them do, but some of them do. And we can help you make it financially sustainable. They're nearly crying with excitement because they're like, no one has ever addressed this problem. The bank won't help me and there's no one else to help me. It's either sell it or let part of it rot. And they're living in a national landmark. And that's their choice that they're confronted with. I mean, it's depressing and crazy. So more than happy to help.
We started this conversation looking at AI and data provenance and tracking and the role that blockchain could help play in that. More generally, in terms of digital data and our own personal data, is there a way to be truly invisible, digitally speaking?
It's very, very difficult, and it's not for the common untechnical person, not very achievable, unfortunately. What I like to preface these conversations with is, what you can do is take precautions about all the data you're producing from now into the future. Board advisor and chief evangelist for a big Silicon Valley company called Drumwave. They've spent the past 7 years in stealth creating the first ever product where you can own all of your data, claim all of the data that companies hold on you, API into it, put it into a data savings account. And every time someone wants to license that data, the AIs will build value on that data for you, add extra models on top of your raw data to make it more valuable. And if you accept to monetize it, you get paid, and you keep it in your data savings account if you want. You can spend it, you can invest it as fiat currency value, or you can earn compounding interest by leaving it in there, and you can even borrow off the future value of it. So it's really exciting. It's being currently integrated nationally with government so that every citizen in certain countries can have a data savings account and a data savings plan from birth. And companies, since we launched that Money 2020 in October, can now use that. So for me, privacy is a scaremongering word that means if you share your data, something bad is going to happen. I'm a much bigger advocate of data ownership, where you can own everything and you decide whether you want to monetize it or not. If you monetize it, that's your money. The 2 billion people around the world living on less than $2 a day much more benefit from earning more than $2 a day from their data than they do from keeping completely useless data set to themselves. What is useless to them? Keeping your grocery shopping private is really not that interesting. It doesn't really add to your safety very much. But if you can monetize that information, you should have the right to and pay for your next grocery bill with your data savings account.
And is Drumwave a consumer product or a B2B product?
It's B2B product right now.
In terms of what they could do to protect their data, I know you've got your website and they can obviously go there, but just to give people a bit of a sense of the kinds of things that they could do to protect.
I think the most important is to first look at your settings and see what data set you are sharing. I bet you in your app, you don't know that you are sharing probably with thousands of companies and third parties your data at the moment. So what is incredibly important is for you to actually understand the technologies that you're using and where you're able to protect yourself. Your settings on your phone and in your computer and the cookies you allow or disallow are the most basic tools that you have. And now these days, there's a lot more transparency. So spend time in those parts of your technology, figure out and read each of the different privacy settings and what they mean and what their implications are. Your phone gets hot a lot less often. You'll notice that your data plan becomes a lot cheaper, et cetera, and so forth. The amount of data that you are paying to process on a daily basis in order to feed the global data machine that is making trillions of dollars off of people's individual data, but having you pay for it is insane. This is why something that I've been advocating for a decade, but specifically is kind of the messaging around Drumwave, is that every individual pays for at least 50% of the cost of processing all of the data. We pay for the hardware on our phone. We pay for our data plan. That's more than 50% of the cost of these companies taking our personal data from us. So we should own at least 50% of the revenue. So in all of these data savings accounts, you get 50% of the revenue of all of the third parties that are licensing your data. And the other 50% goes to the company who paid to build the platform that has collected it.
So cool. It sounds like, rather than spending the next few days doom scrolling, people could benefit from actually diving into their phone and making sure the settings that they know what they're sharing and not sharing things that they don't want to.
Yes, exactly. It will really open your eyes when you see how many apps on your phone you are sharing your live location. Think about it. Do you know that company? Do you trust everybody in that company? Do you trust all of the maybe hundreds of developers from around the world that have access to that data? You shouldn't be sharing your live location with anyone for any reason. I turn on my live location in order to use Uber Eats or Google Maps on my way to somewhere, and then I turn it back off again. No app should have access to your live location. That's insanity. So do go through and make sure that you are knowledgeable enough to make an educated decision about how you feel about each of the privacy settings in the tech that you use on a daily basis.
Great advice. And Brittany, you became a mum 3 years ago. How do you find being a mum and running all your various companies and all the advocacy work that you do?
So my Own Your Data Foundation that I co-founded with my sister in 2019 is focused on the democratization of access to digital literacy education. So teaching kids about, not just kids, obviously I teach legislators and government officials and Fortune 500 boards, but concentrating on children and teaching them what their data rights are, everything from the different digital literacy concepts around your digital footprint, all the data that you produce online, how to control that, screen time management for your mental and physical health, countering cyberbullying, how not to be a cyberbully and have digital empathy when you're interacting with other people. All of these concepts called DQ or digital intelligence quotient, like an IQ or an EQ. And we have different materials and curriculums and even games that you can use in order to learn more about those concepts and not just be able to protect yourself online, but to be able to be a good digital citizen and to be successful online. Because obviously I'm a technologist. I do believe that everyone should learn how to be successful using technology and not be scared of it and not think that privacy is the only way forward. That's not what I advocate for, but certainly I'm not going to let my child have access to social media. Social media didn't exist until my last year of high school. So, my first Facebook account was when I got my college email. I think that should be the same for everyone. None of these products are safe for children, and they never will be. So I think it's terrible for children's mental health. I'm involved. I continue to be involved since 2018 in tons of lawsuits against Facebook and Meta and Instagram for targeting children with suicide websites and other completely unsafe materials. Childhood suicide has gone up over 400% since the proliferation of social media. No children should have social media at this point. Certainly not now after Meta has decided to stop content moderation altogether when they're already responsible for the deaths of so many kids around the world. So no, my child will not be able to access a lot of these products until he's ready. I just got him a Kano, which is for Christmas, which is a product where kids can learn how to build their own computer on Raspberry Pi. and then engage in a global community to learn how to code. I think that is cool. I actually backed that a decade ago on Kickstarter, and my name is in the source code. They're now like a very globally used product, which I think is really cool. And yeah, so definitely going to get him technically ready and technically savvy. But I think the social media thing for kids is highly, highly dangerous. And parents should take that very seriously. The owners of all social media companies do not let their children use it. That should be the number one biggest red flag.
What about, how have you found managing all of your things and motherhood combined, Brittany? Has that just been like a seamless thing, or have you had to change the way you work at all?
Oh, yeah. That is a special one. But definitely, my child is in preschool a little bit earlier than I would have if I wasn't, a mom running many companies at once. And because I'm a professional public speaker and traveling around, being at conferences all the time, he definitely has a very thick passport. Definitely a different upbringing than some other children get. But that's why I'm quite careful about and intentional about what he's learning and what he has access to. I don't have a huge problem with a little bit of screen time. Like, we're currently using Hooked on Phonics videos to teach him how to read, which I used Hooked on Phonics cassette tapes when I was a kid. So I really like their program, especially useful on planes to have like logic games and reading games and things for him, and some educational cartoons and programs that he likes. That I don't think is as much of a big problem if you're intentional about what they are accessing. But some parents might think it's safe to use YouTube Kids, but like YouTube Kids only gives you like 2 and 3 minute videos and they just keep going. Your kid should not see a different program every 2 or 3 minutes, just creating attention deficit problems. Like it's really not good. So I think a lot of the things, digital products that are geared towards kids are not actually safe and are not good. And you should be highly intentional before allowing your children to have access to things like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. My 4-year-old, he started to say, instead of I'm bored, he says, I'm boring.
Oh my God.
Brittany, what is your favorite song right now?
That's so funny. So I've recently really gone deep back with Hozier. I love all of his work. Like Take Me to Church is like on repeat on my phone these days. And all of his work, like Work Song. Oh my God. Amazing. He has such a beautiful voice. Yeah, completely obsessed with him right now. Obviously, ever since like he came on the scene of like this music, but right now it's just like come back full and strong in my life. And so to be honest about what I'm listening to on repeat right now, that's it.
I mean, you have the most diverse landscape of careers and backgrounds, I think, of anyone that I know. I mean, there's so many, unique and fascinating things about you. Is there any like random thing that Google and most people wouldn't know about you that you might be able to share?
What's quite funny is that until like very, very recently, most people had no idea about my obsession with historic preservation and archaeology. Like my first job was as an archaeologist working for a company called Pre-Construct Archaeology in the UK, which does like Time Team, if you've seen that on TV, all of the archaeological investigations. So my first job, it was my summer job as an archaeologist, where I was wearing like a high-vis vest, hard hat, steel-toed boots, doing a dig in Peckham. It was like a Victorian, Georgian, and Roman dig at different levels. And that was my first job, like little teenage Brittany dressed as a construction worker, digging holes in Peckham Rye, south of London. Like, it's quite funny because my career is very different than that right now. And yeah, I think that's something that still shocks and surprises a lot of people because it's like the opposite of law and tech.
Well, maybe your AI agent will have you in high-vis clothes next time.
Yeah, exactly. I find it for Christmas, my son got a mini set. He's obsessed with construction vehicles right now, so it's highly appropriate. But I'm like, oh my God, that was my first work outfit.
Here's nostalgia. Brittany, it's been an absolute delight to chat with you today. Thank you so much for making the time. And yeah, I really enjoyed this catch up and learned so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for hosting. This has been great. And if you guys want to follow any more that I'm doing, my X handle is at Own Your Data Now. So please check me out on there. And on LinkedIn, I'm Own Your Data. And generally on every platform, you can find me by Brittany Kaiser, Own Your Data.
Awesome. We're going to do an intro, obviously with a glittering introduction with your bio and whatnot, but we thought we'd just use the time very presciently today.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
That's all for this episode of Unblocked. Please check out the show notes for information on Power Ledger and other contact information. We welcome your comments and feedback, and please hit subscribe wherever you are listening. This podcast was produced by Podcasts Done For You. We look forward to your company next time on Unblocked.